The days after their mission were tense but filled with a quiet companionship. Lyra and Ethan spent long hours analyzing the data they had collected from the planet. The work was demanding, but working together felt natural. Ethan was patient, asking questions when he didn't understand something and quietly listening when Lyra explained complex details. Lyra noticed small things about him she had never seen before. How he always remembered minor details, how he stayed calm under pressure, and how his curiosity never seemed to end. Despite herself, Lyra felt her walls slowly lowering. She kept reminding herself that this was professional, that feelings were dangerous, especially with a human. Humans were unpredictable, she told herself, and she could not allow emotions to cloud her judgment. Yet she found herself looking forward to his presence. The sound of his voice, even the simple moments when he offered her a cup of hot liquid after long hours. One evening, the hub received a special alert. A nearby star was experiencing unusual flares, and the Council requested an urgent study of their impact on nearby planets, including the one they had just explored. Lyra and Ethan were chosen to lead a rapid mission to gather further data. It was dangerous, the energy surges could be lethal, but neither hesitated. Their trust in each other had grown enough that they knew they could face the risks together. They boarded the shuttle and traveled back to the planet, navigating through the star's flares. Lyra monitored the instruments while Ethan piloted with precision, adjusting constantly to avoid sudden bursts of radiation. The planet's surface was more volatile this time. Crystals glowed brighter, energy pulses shook the ground, and pockets of heat erupted without warning. As they moved through the terrain, they discovered a rare plant that emitted energy in short bursts. Lyra leaned closer to study it, scanning the patterns. Ethan watched, cautious but intrigued. Then a sudden surge hit, stronger than anything they had experienced before. The energy arced around them, causing Lyra to stumble. She reached out instinctively, and Ethan's hand found hers. The contact was brief, but it was enough to create a spark, literally and figuratively. When the energy subsided, Lyra quickly scanned herself. All readings were normal, but a strange tingling ran through her body. Ethan checked himself too, his face serious but calm. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked. Lyra nodded, though her mind was racing. "Yes, just an unusual sensation, nothing more." She tried to focus on the mission, but she could not ignore the sudden awareness of his presence. Over the next few days, their interactions became even more subtle and layered. They worked in close quarters, often brushing against each other while handling delicate instruments. Every time it happened, Lyra's heart seemed to jump. She was disciplined, careful, and focused on the work. But the connection she felt with Ethan was undeniable. She began to notice things she had never noticed before. The steady confidence in his movements, the warmth in his smile, the quiet reassurance in his voice. Then came the discovery that would change everything. While analyzing samples back at the hub, Lyra noticed an anomaly in her own biology. At first, she thought it was a mistake in the instruments, a minor error. But repeated tests confirmed it. She was carrying a child. A human-alien hybrid, something considered nearly impossible. Lyra's first reaction was shock, followed quickly by fear. Her mind raced with questions. How could this happen? What would her species think? How would Ethan react? She felt a wave of panic. But beneath it was something else. Something she did not want to admit even to herself. A strange, growing sense of connection. Ethan was equally stunned when she told him. "Lyra, He paused, searching for the right words. "This is incredible and complicated. But I'm here. We'll figure it out together." Lyra studied his face, looking for hesitation, for fear, for regret. But she found none. Instead, she found determination and care. It was the same trust he had shown her on the planet, the same bravery that had drawn her admiration. For the first time, she allowed herself to breathe. She was not alone in this. The next few weeks were a mixture of research, secrecy, and preparation. Lyra knew that revealing the pregnancy to the Council would cause uproar. Human-alien hybrids were a scientific marvel, but in her society they were also a source of fear. Some would call it improper, unnatural, even dangerous. She decided to keep it private for now. Confiding only in Ethan, Ethan became her anchor. He accompanied her to medical scans, helped her manage the stress, and kept a constant presence that made the uncertainty easier to bear. Lyra found herself relying on him more than she expected. It was not just about the child. It was about trust. companionship, and an emotional connection that neither had anticipated. During quiet moments, they would sit together and talk about the future. Ethan shared stories of his life on Earth, of human resilience, ingenuity, and the small acts of kindness that defined humanity. Lyra listened, fascinated. Humans were indeed unpredictable, but in a way that inspired courage and hope. They adapted, they solved impossible problems, and they cared deeply for each other. Lyra began to see humans differently. She had once thought of them as impulsive and reckless, but now she realized that those traits were also strengths. Humans faced uncertainty with creativity and courage. They acted with their hearts as well as their minds. Ethan embodied these qualities, and she could not help but feel admiration and something more for him. One evening, as they looked out at the stars from the observation deck, Ethan spoke softly. "You know, Lyra, this is going to change everything. Not just for us, but for the galaxy. Our child. It's proof that we can be more than our species. We can learn from each other, grow together, and maybe even create something new." Lyra felt a tear slip down her cheek. She had spent her life believing that humans were too unpredictable, too chaotic. Yet here was one human standing beside her, facing the unknown with courage and care. He had never asked for anything in return, never demanded more than her trust, and yet he had earned it fully. "I was wrong about humans," she admitted quietly. I thought they were too unpredictable to matter. But now I see. They are capable of so much more than I ever imagined." Ethan reached out and took her hand gently. "Lyra, humans are like that because we have to be. Life is uncertain. Danger is everywhere. But we survive, we adapt, and we protect the ones we care about. That's why we're here. Together." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to believe in the future. She imagined the child growing inside her, a bridge between two species, a symbol of trust and unity. Fear and doubt still lingered, but they were tempered by hope and determination. She would face the council when the time came, and she would do it with Ethan by her side. In the following days, they worked in secret to monitor her health and study the child's development. It was a careful balance, advancing their research while keeping the pregnancy private. Each scan revealed remarkable traits. The child carried qualities from both species, combining human adaptability and Seraphine intelligence. Lyra marveled at the possibilities. This child could be a new step in interstellar evolution, a living symbol of what cooperation and trust between species could achieve. Despite the excitement, Lyra felt the weight of responsibility. She had to protect her child, herself, and the fragile trust that had formed with Ethan. It was not just a matter of science, it was a matter of courage, ethics, and heart. Every decision mattered. She had learned to rely on her instincts as a scientist, but now she had to trust her emotions as well. Ethan never faltered. He planned for contingencies, ensured her comfort, and reminded her that she was not alone. Slowly, Lyra's fear turned into determination. She would face the challenges ahead with strength, for herself, for Ethan, and for the child they had created together. As they prepared to return to their home systems, Lyra looked at Ethan and felt something she had never admitted before. A deep, abiding respect and an unexpected warmth in her heart. She had sworn never to date a human, never to allow herself to feel. But now, as she held his hand and felt the steady beat of his courage, she realized that some rules were meant to be reconsidered. The universe was vast, full of danger and wonder. And somewhere in that vastness, Lyra understood that humans, unpredictable, brave, and full of heart, were not just capable of surviving. They were capable of inspiring greatness, of changing the course of events, and of shaping the future. Her future, she realized, was no longer hers alone. It was shared with Ethan and with the child growing inside her, a child who would become a bridge between worlds, a symbol of unity and hope. And though the path ahead was uncertain, she felt ready to walk it, one careful step at a time. The first threads of a new life, a new bond, and a new understanding had been woven. Lyra did not yet know the challenges that awaited, but she felt a quiet certainty. Together, they could face anything. The story that had begun with caution and professional boundaries had now grown into something far more profound. It was no longer about rules or vows or fear. It was about trust, courage, and the remarkable potential of a human heart. The moment had come when Lyra could no longer hide the truth. The Council of her species had requested a formal report on the unusual discovery of human-alien hybrid potential. They were curious, cautious, and not without prejudice. Lyra knew that keeping her pregnancy a secret forever was impossible. The child she carried was unique, and the universe would notice sooner or later. Ethan had stayed by her side, quietly reassuring her. His presence had become her anchor. "No matter what happens," he said one evening as they prepared the data for the council, "we face it together. I won't let anything happen to you or our child." Lyra had felt a mixture of relief and pride. This human, so unpredictable, so courageous, and so caring, had become more than a colleague. He was her partner, in every sense she had never imagined. The day of the council hearing arrived. The chamber was enormous, circular, with thousands of Seraphine delegates hovering silently on gleaming platforms. Their eyes followed her as she entered with Ethan. Whispers rippled through the room. Some delegates looked shocked, others curious, and a few were clearly disapproving. Lyra felt her wings tighten against her back, a subtle sign of tension among her people. She stood at the podium, facing the council. Her voice was steady, though her heart raced. "Honorable delegates," she began, "I present to you the result of our recent mission and a discovery that challenges our understanding of interspecies biology." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I am carrying a human-alien hybrid." The chamber erupted in murmurs and questions. Some delegates were outraged, calling it unnatural. Others whispered about the scientific potential. Lyra remained calm, presenting the medical scans and genetic data. She explained the child's unique abilities, the potential for growth, and the extraordinary combination of human adaptability and Seraphine intelligence. A senior delegate spoke sharply. "Lyra, are you suggesting that this child is acceptable? That our species should tolerate such anomalies?" Lyra met his gaze without hesitation. "I am suggesting that this child represents hope, not danger. Humans are capable of remarkable courage, ingenuity, and compassion. These traits can enrich our species, not diminish it. This child is proof that trust and cooperation across species can create something extraordinary." Ethan stepped forward, his presence commanding attention even among the Seraphine. "I understand your concern," he said, "but I have worked closely with Lyra. I have seen her brilliance and our combined potential. This child is not a threat, it is an opportunity. Human ingenuity, combined with Seraphine knowledge, can benefit the galaxy. We must not fear what is new. We must embrace it responsibly." The room fell silent. Lyra could feel the weight of judgment, curiosity, and skepticism pressing on her. She knew that even as she spoke the truth, there were many who would never accept it. But the sincerity in Ethan's voice, the calm certainty in his demeanor, reminded her why she had chosen to trust him. Over the next few days, the council deliberated. Lyra stayed in her quarters, monitoring her health and the development of the child. Ethan never left her side. They spent long hours discussing potential outcomes, planning for safety, and preparing for opposition. Lyra felt a growing confidence. The child inside her was not just a symbol, it was a new path, a bridge between worlds. Finally, the council reached a decision. The vote was close, but in favor of allowing Lyra to continue the pregnancy. Conditions were imposed to monitor the child's growth and ensure safety, but the verdict was clear. The child would live. Lyra felt a wave of relief and gratitude. She had faced judgment, fear, and potential rejection, and yet the council had recognized the child's potential. As the council chambers emptied, Ethan turned to her with a gentle smile. "See, we can face anything together. I told you we would." Lyra allowed herself a small laugh, feeling the tension melt away. She reached for his hand, holding it firmly. For the first time, she truly believed in their shared future. In the days that followed, they focused on studying the child's development. Lyra's body was changing in ways that fascinated scientists, but the most remarkable changes were not physical. They were subtle, emotional, and intellectual. The child responded to stimuli in unique ways, showing early signs of both human and Seraphine traits. Lyra could feel the child's curiosity, intelligence, and energy even before birth. Ethan marveled at every detail. "This child could teach us so much," he said one evening as they observed the scans. "About cooperation, about survival, about understanding each other across species. We're witnessing something extraordinary." Lyra nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that the child had already changed her perspective, challenging old prejudices and opening her heart to new possibilities. She had sworn never to date a human, yet here she was, fully trusting and caring for one, united in purpose and hope. The bond between Lyra and Ethan deepened further. They shared quiet moments, discussing dreams, fears, and the responsibilities ahead. Lyra was amazed at how human emotion could be both simple and profound, how trust and empathy could bridge gaps that logic alone could not. She saw in Ethan a resilience and bravery that inspired her daily, and she found herself drawn to him in ways she had never imagined. Outside their private moments, the council and the scientific community continued to observe. Some delegates remained skeptical, questioning every detail, every decision. Others began to see the potential, intrigued by the scientific and cultural implications of a human-alien hybrid. Lyra and Ethan navigated these pressures carefully, presenting data, answering questions, and demonstrating that their child was not a danger, but a symbol of unity and hope. One night, as they watched the twin moons rise over the research hub, Lyra reflected on the journey so far. She had entered this partnership with clear rules, strong boundaries, and deep caution. Humans were unpredictable, and she was determined to avoid emotional entanglements. Yet the experiences of the past weeks had changed everything. She had seen courage, ingenuity, and compassion in a human. She had shared danger, discovery, and triumph. She had learned to trust. Ethan broke her reverie with a soft question. "Do you ever wonder what the future will be like for our child?" Lyra smiled faintly, touching her stomach gently. "I think about it every day. This child will have the strengths of both our species. But more than that, it will carry the proof that trust and cooperation are more powerful than fear and prejudice." Ethan nodded. "And we'll be there for every step. We'll protect, guide, and support together." Lyra felt a surge of hope. The path ahead was still uncertain, filled with challenges from society, science, and the unknown. But she had learned that with courage, trust, and determination, obstacles could be overcome. Humans, she realized, were remarkable not just for their strength or intelligence, but for their ability to inspire hope and perseverance in others. In the following weeks, Lyra continued her research while preparing for the child's eventual birth. She trained her body to remain strong, monitored the development carefully, and worked closely with Ethan to plan every detail. Despite the pressure and scrutiny, they found moments of joy, quiet laughter, shared discoveries, and the simple pleasure of each other's company. Lyra began to understand that her initial fear of humans had been based on misunderstanding. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was also creativity, courage, and adaptability. It was a force that could overcome challenges, inspire trust, and build connections. And in Ethan, she saw the best of humanity, resilient, compassionate, and unwaveringly brave. As the day approached when the child would become visible to all, Lyra felt a mixture of anticipation and calm. She had faced judgment, uncertainty, and fear and had emerged stronger. She knew that challenges would continue, but she was no longer alone. With Ethan by her side, she felt capable of facing anything the universe could present. The council, the scientists, and even the skeptical observers watched as Lyra shared updates on the child's growth. Each demonstration showed remarkable intelligence, unique abilities, and a blend of traits that promised a bright future. Slowly, the perception began to shift. Fear gave way to curiosity, skepticism to cautious admiration. Lyra realized that their child was more than a miracle. It was a bridge between worlds, a living symbol of the potential humanity could offer to the galaxy. Ethan held her hand as they watched the latest scan. "You were right," he said softly. "Humans are unpredictable, but in ways that can change everything for the better." Lyra smiled, a sense of profound peace settling over her. "And I was wrong," she admitted. "I thought humans were too dangerous, too impulsive. But now I see they can be a source of hope, courage, and inspiration." Together they looked out at the stars, knowing that the challenges ahead were still real, but so was their bond. They had faced the scrutiny of an entire species, the uncertainty of a remarkable child, and the unpredictable dangers of the universe. And they had emerged stronger, united, and ready to embrace the future. The story that had begun with caution, rules, and fear had transformed. It was now about trust, courage, hope, and the remarkable potential of humans to inspire, protect, and create a new path. Lyra understood that her life and the life of her child would never be ordinary, but it would be extraordinary, shaped by love, bravery, and the enduring spirit of humanity. The day had finally come. Lyra felt a mixture of excitement, anticipation, and a quiet nervousness she had never experienced before. The child she carried was unique, a living bridge between humans and seraphines, a symbol of hope and unity. She had prepared for this moment carefully, with Ethan by her side. Yet nothing could completely erase the natural anxiety of bringing a new life into the universe. The research hub had been transformed into a safe and controlled environment for the birth. Advanced medical equipment, both human and seraphine, was in place. Monitors tracked every heartbeat, every sign of energy and life, while a team of scientists watched quietly, respecting Lyra's space but ready to assist if needed. Ethan stayed close, holding her hand as they reviewed the final preparations. "We've done everything we can," he said softly. "Now we just need to trust the process and each other." Lyra nodded, feeling the warmth of his hand, the steady reassurance of his presence. She had spent weeks fearing judgment and the unknown, yet now she felt an unexpected peace. Their child was strong, healthy, and full of potential, and she was not alone. As the birth process began, Lyra focused on her breathing, her thoughts centering on the tiny life she would soon meet. Ethan spoke softly to her, describing the stars outside, telling stories of the worlds they had explored together, and reminding her of her courage. His words were grounding, calming, and full of care. Hours passed, each moment bringing a mixture of tension and wonder. The energy in the room shifted as the child responded to Lyra's guidance, reacting to her voice and touch. Monitors showed patterns of movement and pulses that reflected both seraphine and human traits. The child's presence was already remarkable, already extraordinary. Finally, after a period of intense focus and careful guidance, the child emerged. Lyra gasped, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the small, vibrant being in her arms. The child's wings shimmered faintly like Lyra's, but the eyes held the warmth and depth of a human. Every movement, every breath radiated life, curiosity, and intelligence. Ethan leaned closer, awe in his eyes. "It's perfect," he whispered, gently brushing a hand across the child's tiny arm. "Both of you are perfect." Lyra smiled through her tears, feeling a profound love she had never anticipated. This child was not just a miracle of science. It was a miracle of trust, courage, and connection. She had doubted humans, feared the unknown, and followed rules that now seemed too rigid. But here in her arms she realized that life, in all its unpredictability, could bring the most extraordinary gifts. The council and the scientific teams were invited to witness the child's first moments. Their reactions ranged from awe to cautious admiration. The child's intelligence, responsiveness, and energy fascinated them. Some delegates had previously doubted the possibility, the morality or the practicality of a human-alien hybrid, but now they could see the truth. This was not a danger, but a promise. One senior delegate approached Lyra cautiously, his usual stern demeanor softened. "Lyra, Ethan, this child is remarkable. I did not believe such a union could succeed, yet here is proof. Perhaps humans have more to offer than we realized." Lyra nodded, a smile of quiet pride on her face. "Humans are capable of extraordinary courage, creativity, and compassion. This child is living proof that trust and cooperation can achieve things beyond fear and prejudice." Ethan held Lyra's hand, his voice gentle but firm. "And this is just the beginning. Together, we can show the galaxy what is possible when species work in harmony." In the following days, Lyra and Ethan adjusted to the rhythms of caring for the child while continuing their scientific work. They observed the child's rapid growth, noting both human and seraphine traits. The child showed signs of curiosity far beyond its age, a sharp intelligence, and a remarkable adaptability. It responded to challenges, learned quickly, and displayed early communication skills that amazed the team. Lyra often marveled at how human traits had influenced the child. Humans, she realized more fully than ever, were capable of inspiring courage, ingenuity, and resilience. Even in the face of danger, uncertainty, or judgment, they found ways to adapt, to protect, and to create. Ethan embodied these qualities, and their child carried them forward in ways that promised a bright future. Their bond as a family grew stronger every day. Ethan and Lyra shared responsibilities, decisions, and quiet moments of joy. They discussed the child's potential, the future of human-alien cooperation, and the ways in which their lives had been forever changed. Lyra reflected on her past beliefs, realizing that her fear of humans had been a limitation, not a truth. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was a strength, a source of courage, and a force for good. As the child grew, Lyra and Ethan introduced it to the worlds they had explored together. The child's first experiences with the stars, the planets, and the vibrant ecosystems of the galaxy were full of wonder and delight. Lyra watched with pride as the child adapted, explored, and learned. Each day brought new discoveries, new joys, and new proof of the incredible potential of human-alien cooperation. The council and scientific community continued to observe, initially with cautious curiosity, then with increasing admiration. Reports of the child's development were shared across the hub, inspiring conversations about unity, cooperation, and the possibilities of the future. Lyra and Ethan were asked to share their experiences, providing guidance for others who might face similar opportunities. Lyra often reflected on how far they had come. She had begun this journey with strict rules, careful boundaries, and deep caution. Humans were unpredictable, she believed, and emotional entanglements were to be avoided. Yet through courage, trust, and the bond with Ethan, she had discovered something far more powerful: the ability to love, to trust, and to embrace the unknown. Ethan's role in their lives was unwavering. He guided, supported, and inspired Lyra and the child in equal measure. His humanity, the very trait she had once feared, was a source of strength, comfort, and hope. He demonstrated daily that humans were capable of bravery, loyalty, and compassion, even in the most unpredictable circumstances. The family thrived. The child learned quickly, showed intelligence beyond expectation, and developed a unique combination of human adaptability and Seraphine insight. Lyra and Ethan nurtured its growth with love, guidance, and encouragement. They discovered together how humans and Seraphines could complement each other, combining intuition and logic, creativity and precision, heart and mind. In quiet moments, Lyra would hold the child and reflect on the journey that had brought them here. She thought of the initial mission, the dangers faced on the volatile planet, the spark of trust with Ethan, and the challenges of the council. Each step had been unpredictable, frightening, and yet full of wonder. She realized that humans, in their unpredictability, had taught her resilience, hope, and courage. Ethan often watched her with quiet admiration. "You've grown too," he said softly one evening. "You've learned to trust, to embrace the unknown, and to see the strength in humanity." "You're incredible, Lyra." Lyra smiled, feeling the warmth of both their lives intertwined. "We've grown together," she replied. "Humans are remarkable, Ethan, and so are you." The child cooed softly, stretching tiny limbs, and Lyra felt a profound joy. This life, this union, was more than the sum of their parts. It was proof that fear and prejudice could be overcome, that courage and trust could create something extraordinary, and that humans, unpredictable, brave, and full of heart, could inspire greatness across the galaxy. As the suns rose over the research hub, casting golden light across the gleaming floors, Lyra, Ethan, and their child looked out at the stars. They knew the future would hold challenges, other species, unexplored worlds, and the endless uncertainties of the universe. But they also knew that together they could face anything. They were stronger, wiser, and braver than they had ever imagined. The story that had begun with rules, fear, and caution had transformed into a tale of hope, courage, and unity. Lyra had learned that humans were not merely unpredictable, they were capable of inspiring trust, bravery, and love. Ethan had shown her the depth of human strength and compassion, and their child was living proof that together, species could create something extraordinary. As they held each other, watching the universe unfold before them, Lyra felt a deep certainty. Life was unpredictable, yes, but with trust, courage, and love, even the most uncertain paths could lead to greatness. She smiled at Ethan, then at their child, and whispered softly, "The universe is wide, and our journey is just beginning." And in that moment, the hub, the stars, and the galaxy seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the hope, unity, and extraordinary potential of humans, Seraphines, and the bond that had brought them together. The research hub floated silently in the depths of space, a gleaming structure surrounded by stars that shimmered like tiny diamonds. Ships from different planets moved in and out, bringing scientists, explorers, and traders. Among them was Lyra, a Seraphine scientist known for her brilliance. Her species had wings that glimmered like silver in the sunlight of their homeworld, but Lyra preferred to keep hers folded when she worked, a sign of focus and discipline. She was dedicated, precise, and above all, careful to avoid unnecessary emotional entanglements, especially with humans. Lyra had always believed humans were unpredictable. They were strong, clever, and often daring, but they acted on impulse more than reason. In her experience, such impulsiveness led to mistakes, sometimes dangerous ones. Her rules were clear. Work with them, collaborate if needed, but never, ever allow personal feelings to interfere. Her newest assignment challenged every principle she held. Captain Ethan Cole was a human explorer, renowned across many systems for his bravery and quick thinking. The Council of Scientists had assigned them to study a newly discovered planet with rare flora and volatile energy patterns. Lyra's first reaction was one of annoyance. She had read his reports. He was bold, sometimes reckless, and clearly a show-off. The thought of spending weeks in close quarters with him was not comforting. When Ethan arrived at the hub, he greeted everyone warmly, his broad smile reaching his eyes. He moved with ease, confident and alert, scanning the surroundings as if he belonged there. Lyra felt an involuntary tightening in her chest. She shook her head, reminding herself this was a professional partnership, nothing more. Their first meeting was tense. Lyra outlined the mission's parameters carefully, emphasizing the dangers of the planet. Ethan listened, nodding attentively, but occasionally interrupted with questions that were direct and pointed, questions that no one else had considered. At first, Lyra found it irritating. How dare he challenge her approach? But then she noticed something. He didn't ask questions to undermine her. He asked because he wanted to understand, to prepare, to be ready. That small difference sparked a reluctant respect. The journey to the planet was long. They traveled through asteroid belts, past glowing nebulae, and over dark voids that seemed endless. During these hours, Lyra observed Ethan closely. He was careful, yet adaptable. When small malfunctions occurred on the ship, he handled them calmly, thinking on his feet. When a system failed that she thought was unfixable, he improvised a solution that worked perfectly. Lyra's skepticism began to soften. When they finally landed, the planet was both beautiful and dangerous. Towering crystalline plants swayed gently, glowing faintly in the dim light, but the ground trembled unpredictably. Energy surges caused small bursts of lightning that danced across the surface. Every step required focus. Lyra led the initial scans, noting anomalies in the flora and the planet's magnetic field. Ethan followed, but always kept one eye on the surroundings, ready to act if something went wrong. The first day was uneventful, but exhausting. Lyra returned to the ship to analyze data, but Ethan stayed outside, examining an unusual cluster of glowing rocks. She watched him through the viewport, noting how he crouched carefully, observed closely, and made quick sketches. She could not deny his skill. Still, she reminded herself, no feelings, no attachments. The next day, everything changed. While exploring a narrow canyon, they felt the ground shake beneath their feet. A sudden energy burst hit the rocks above, causing a landslide. Lyra was caught off guard, and a heavy crystal shard fell near her. Before she could react, Ethan leaped forward without hesitation. He pushed her out of the way, taking the brunt of the impact on his shoulder. The shard cracked against his protective suit, but he was shaken and bleeding slightly. Lyra's heart raced. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she scanned for serious injuries. Ethan waved her off, brushing the dirt from his suit. "I'm fine. Nothing worse than a bruise," he said, but his voice was steadier than she expected. "You could have been killed," she said, voice tight. Her usual composure wavered. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw the determination in his eyes, the unspoken promise that he would protect her no matter the risk. Ethan smiled faintly. "That's why we work together. You watch my back, I watch yours." Lyra felt something unfamiliar, a warmth in her chest, a flutter of something she had never allowed herself to feel before. She quickly pushed it down. This was not safe, not professional. She could not, would not let herself be drawn to a human. They continued their mission, but the bond between them grew, subtle, yet undeniable. Ethan respected her knowledge and instincts, often deferring to her judgment while contributing his own innovative solutions. Lyra began to notice small things: the way he listened intently, the care he took in recording their findings, the quiet patience he showed in dangerous situations. He was unlike any human she had met. He was unpredictable, yes, but in a way that was exciting and strangely comforting. One evening, as the twin suns of the planet set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Lyra found herself standing near Ethan watching the horizon. He noticed her gaze and turned, smiling gently. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "Yes," she replied, her voice softer than usual. She looked down, embarrassed by her own lingering thoughts. Ethan tilted his head. "Lyra, I know you're cautious. I know humans are, well, unpredictable, but I also know you're capable of more than anyone realizes. You lead, you protect, and you think in ways even I can't always predict. I respect that." Lyra felt a mix of pride and confusion. His words stirred something deep inside her, something that defied logic. She wanted to tell him to stop, to maintain distance, but her voice caught in her throat. Instead, she nodded silently. The next morning, they faced a new challenge. The planet's magnetic fields caused sudden storms that interfered with their equipment. A massive surge struck, sending waves of energy across the canyon. Lyra struggled to stabilize their instruments, but the field was unpredictable. Before she could react, a pulse of energy knocked her off balance. Ethan caught her just in time, steadying her with his strong grip. "You have to trust me," he said firmly, looking into her eyes. "I do," she whispered, though her heart pounded. For the first time, Lyra felt that perhaps humans were not just unpredictable, they were adaptable, brave and resilient in ways her own species sometimes was not. She had spent her life believing she needed to control everything, to avoid mistakes, to follow logic above all. But here was a human who thrived in chaos, who found solutions in the impossible, who inspired trust without demanding it. As the mission continued, Lyra and Ethan worked seamlessly together, their skills complementing each other perfectly. Each day brought new challenges, but with each challenge, Lyra's admiration for Ethan grew. She fought her feelings fiercely, reminding herself of the vow she had taken: never date a human. Yet she could not deny the strange pull she felt toward him, a connection that went beyond reason. By the time their mission was complete, they had collected data that would advance knowledge across multiple systems. They returned to the research hub, exhausted but triumphant. Lyra stood in her quarters, staring at the stars outside the window, and allowed herself a single thought. Perhaps humans were not just capable of surviving in the universe, they were capable of changing it. Her thoughts, however, were interrupted by a message from Ethan. It was simple, yet it made her chest tighten. "I'll see you at dinner. Don't keep me waiting." Lyra read it twice, then placed the device down. She knew she should ignore it, maintain distance, and return to her orderly life. But a small part of her, a part she did not want to admit even to herself, looked forward to seeing him. As the sun set once more, painting the hub in gold and violet, Lyra realized that for the first time, her carefully structured world felt uncertain. And yet in that uncertainty, she felt alive. The first part of their story had begun, not with passion or romance, but with trust, bravery, and the subtle beginnings of a bond that neither could ignore. Lyra had no idea that this bond would soon challenge everything she believed about humans and herself. And though she did not yet know it, the universe had plans for them that neither science nor reason could predict.